And for more on the crisis in Ukraine, I'm joined in the studio now by Michael Kofman. He's a public policy scholar at the Global Issues think tank, the Wilson Center. And thanks so much for being here, Michael.
My pleasure.
So the EU believes Russia is backing the rebels. NATO says it has proof that Russia is doing this. Russia denies this. What's holding the EU back from adopting tougher sanctions? Are they afraid of some sort of economic backlash?
Well, I think, of course, they're afraid of backlash. I think the first challenge for the EU is the EU is a bloc of a number of member states. In order to carry out any sanctions, they first have to agree on them. Hence, they've issued this ultimatum to Russia and given Russia about a week. They know Russia will not meet any of the terms of the ultimatum. The point of the ultimatum is for the EU to actually agree amongst itself what the sanctions should be, meaning they need a week to figure out how they're going to punish Russia for this action. So the first thing that's leading them back is really agreement amongst the states on what the next steps would be. And the second thing that's holding them back is that the sanctions have not proven very effective. Certainly has not stopped Russia from annexing Crimea, or from supporting the separatists, or from what appears to be now openly invading Ukraine.
Now, Russia says, that it is not backing them with arms. We do know that. Another round of OSCE-sponsored peace talks, which includes representatives Ukraine and Russia, scheduled for Monday in Minsk. Do we expect anything really substantial to come out of this?
I would say, at least in my estimation, there will be a very different tone from the Ukrainians between the last meeting on Tuesday in Minsk and this one coming up. I think after the last meeting in Minsk, it was clear that a Russian armored column had joined the separatists and opened up the southern front in Ukraine. I think that's beyond a shadow of a doubt. And that was essentially the Russian reply to the lack of any impetus on the Ukrainian side to agree to a ceasefire with the separatists. Perhaps with the Ukrainian army now in retreat, Russia figures that they will see a change of mind.
Russia does want to talk now about statehood for eastern Ukraine. What would this look like?
I personally don't think that Russia wants statehood in the sense of an independent state of New Russia or Novorossiya in eastern Ukraine. I think that that's largely a political feint. What Russia mostly seeks is some sort of political autonomy for that eastern region, but to remain within Ukraine proper. Russia certainly does not want some sort of rump independent state, nor does it want a piece of territory that it must itself pay to rebuild and control. Because in truth, any semi-independent state that is at least independent from Kiev will constantly try to join Russia. It will pressure Russia to accept it as another republic, and Russia does not want to absorb this territory.
As you know, Ukraine's President Poroshenko is traveling to Britain and is going to seek membership in NATO. Would this help its case in any way?
To seek membership in NATO is a path of many, many years and a great deal of negotiations with NATO, and also it would require a great deal of agreement amongst NATO countries. This is a very, very distant future perspectives for Ukraine, and will have absolutely no impact on its current situation now or even years from now. Plus, I personally doubt that, given the current situation, that many major European states who are in NATO would want to accept Ukraine with all its problems into NATO.
Let's talk about the threat at hand. NATO said this past week 1,000 Russian soldiers are in Ukraine. They also say that Russia has amassed 20,000 troops just across the border. Do you believe it is poised to invade in a full on-scale war?
Yeah, Russia certainly has the option, and it probably has far more than 20,000 troops ready to go. They've been drilling and carrying out various exercises throughout the 4 Russian military districts over the spring and summer. So they're certainly poised for a full-scale invasion. Do they want to conduct a full-scale invasion? I think absolutely not. I think Russia wants to do the bare minimum to drive the point home to the Ukrainians that they are not going to win against the separatists and that they need to agree to a ceasefire and a political settlement. And Russia is trying to essentially do this piecemeal, all right? Ultimately, I think a full-scale invasion on Russia's part is a last resort. And their current strategies, they're hoping that a 1,000-man southern front will be enough of a point to the Ukrainian political leadership in Kiev that they should start negotiating on a ceasefire now so as not to force Russia's hand. But clearly Russia is willing to go unilaterally and intervene in Ukraine.
All righty. Michael Kofman with the Wilson Center, thank you so much for your time.